Thank you. Our next item of business is consideration of Business Motion 21205 in the name of Graham Day on behalf of the Bureau setting out revisions to this week's business. Could I call on Graham Day to move this motion?
Moved, Presiding Officer.
Thank you very much. And no one has asked to speak against the motion or on the motion, so the question is that motion 21205 be agreed. Are we all agreed? Yes. We are agreed. Thank you. The next item is topical questions, and we have one question today. It's from Miles Briggs.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government what its response is to concerns raised by the former chair of NHS Lothian regarding the new Royal Hospital for Children and Young People.
Cabinet Secretary Jean Freeman.
My short response is that I fundamentally disagree with Mr Houston's reported assertions and accusations. The events leading to my decision to halt the transfer are set out in the independent assessment of governance arrangements for the project that was published last autumn. On Thursday, July 4, 2019, I took the decision that as patient safety could not be guaranteed if the hospital were to open the following week, I instructed a complete halt to the transfer until I could be assured that patient safety in every area of that hospital, including the DCN, met national standards. For the benefit of the Chamber, NHS Lothian's preference at that stage was to attempt to rephase occupation over the following weeks and months, including with DCN moving in as planned and ambulatory paediatric services moving in later in the summer of 2019. The subsequent investigations on the issues to be rectified have demonstrated that such an option would not have been feasible or safe. As a former National Board Chair myself, I did not take this decision lightly. Patient safety, not least those of children, cannot be left to chance. The subsequent support for delivering the project provided as a result by this government of escalating the board to level 4 for the work has put Mary Morgan in to oversee the final delivery of the project to the standard required and within the timeline set. I will, of course, continue to keep the Chamber advised on when the hospital will be opening to serve the people of Lothian.
Miles Briggs.
Cabinet Secretary, in the Edinburgh Evening News interview, the former NHS Lothian chairman paints a worrying picture when he describes a toxic culture, one in which the Cabinet Secretary has presided over, where the board of NHS Lothian has been treated, in his words, with utter contempt. His account raises a fundamental question of trust. To quote, "To come out and say she was overruling NHS Lothian was a lie." Cabinet Secretary, is this version of events correct? And did you actually overrule NHS Lothian?
Cabinet Secretary.
So let me repeat part of what I said in the first answer. On the 3rd of July, the Chief Executive of NHS Lothian sent an email to the Director General of Health and Scottish Government considering 4 potential options and concluded that option 4, rephase the timing of the move into the building to allow a phased occupation over the next few weeks and months, was considered by NHS Lothian as the best option. I did not consider that the best option. I instructed a halt. I think that is clear. I also think it is clear from my dealings with boards across the country and from my actions in this chamber that I am the least likely person to preside over any toxic atmosphere. And I refute that absolutely.
Miles Briggs.
Cabinet Secretary, everything that you've outlined today suggests a dysfunctional relationship between SNP ministers, our health boards and government advisers. Now, in Mr Houston's interview, he says that you threatened if he did not resign, you would fire him. Is that the case?
Cabinet Secretary.
So let me be clear. I do not accept that there is a dysfunctional relationship between the Scottish Government, NHS boards, or any of NHS Directorate staff and NHS boards, and I do not believe the reported assertions and accusations of Mr Houston, which I am clearly refuting and providing evidence to back that, in any way indicates substantive evidence for your assertion, Mr Briggs. In terms of what Mr Houston says, Mr Houston, I took the decision on the 4th of July to halt the move. Mr Houston next met me on the 18th of July. At no point in that intervening period did the chair of that major national board feel it was incumbent upon him to contact me as the Cabinet Secretary in order to discuss what may have gone wrong, what should be done now, and where the board should be involved. Nonetheless, the Director-General of NHS Scotland was in contact with the Chief Executive and matters were being discussed. Matters are continuously discussed between the Director-General, our National Clinical Director, our Chief Medical Officer, our various directors in NHS, and indeed tomorrow I will be attending a meeting of the NHS Chief Execs, as I attend meetings of the NHS chairs on a regular basis. So I do not accept that there is a dysfunctional relationship in any respect. What I do accept is that it is my job to challenge boards, to support them, to ensure that we get the best performance for the investment. In terms of whether or not I said to Mr. Houston that I would sack him, Mr. Houston resigned. I have powers under the Act to dismiss chairs. I did not use those powers in this instance.
Monica Lennon, to be followed by Angela Constance.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. The dominant issue of coronavirus is presenting a public health emergency, and we're about to hear from the Cabinet Secretary on that matter. And we've all committed to work with the Scottish Government in the public interest, but it's clear that this issue around NHS Lothian and the resignation of Brian Houston is not an issue that's going away, and we can't have it swept under the carpet. So will the Cabinet Secretary agree to publish all of the emails and minutes of the discussions that she's referred to, and anything else that would help bring this to a close? And if we don't get the answers that we need, will she commit to a ministerial statement next week so that all members of the Chamber can have more time to explore this in full?
Cabinet Secretary.
So I don't believe in any respect that I am attempting to sweep anything under the carpet, and indeed it would have been my wish to publish the appraisal that Mr. Houston disputes, and is clear in his response that he disputes that appraisal and its conclusions, but GDPR prevents me from doing so. That is the basis. GDPR is not something that I made up. It is not something I control. It exists, and it prevents me from doing so. But what also prevents me from doing so is the relationship that it is critical that I have with board chairs and chief execs, and my Director General has with those individuals too. So I have set out clearly what happened on the 3rd of July, what I did on the 4th of July, and how it took Mr. Houston until the 18th of July to have a conversation with me, which only happened because I visited the Sick Kids Hospital in Edinburgh. Now, I do not know what more Ms. Lennon wants to pursue in this matter, but let me say clearly, the people who are keeping this alive are on these benches and on these benches. No one else from NHS Lothian, from the staff involved in those two hospitals, have raised any concerns whatsoever with me in this regard, and that includes the Area Partnership Forum, who represent the staff across all the unions with whom we have been actively engaged. I believe that we have acted properly. I have acted properly. I have set out very clearly how those with whom we have been actively engaged. I believe that we have acted properly. I have acted properly. I have set out very clearly how those active, that if we are genuinely focused on the right health service for Scotland and on addressing the challenge of coronavirus, then this matter should now be ended by members of the opposition who simply want to make political capital from it.
Okay, we've had a good exploration of this, but I've got 6 more questioners, and I would like to get through them. We'll have brief questions and brief answers too, please. Angela Constance, to be followed by Neil Findlay. Angela Constance.
Thank you very much, Presiding Officer. As the constituency MSP for Almond Valley, I very much appreciate the plain-speaking approach that the Cabinet Secretary takes in standing up for patients and staff. So, recognising that the Health Secretary made a call to postpone NHS Lothian's planned move in the interest of patient safety at a time which has now been publicly acknowledged no decision had been taken by the board, can the Cabinet Secretary elaborate more on what work is now underway to oversee the safe delivery of the new hospital?
Cabinet Secretary.
Of work. Mary Morgan is the director that we have put into the board from government in order to work with the health board to oversee all the works that need done to ensure that the new hospital is safe and meets standards, particularly with respect to ventilation, electrics and fire safety. We are moving on. The timeline has not changed from when I first announced it, so I am hopeful that we will be able to announce shortly the move of DCN into its new facilities at the new site, and that we will then continue the work in order to be able to open the hospital in the autumn of this year.
Neil Findlay, to be followed by Alison Johnson.
Cabinet Secretary, it's our job to hold you to account on behalf of our constituents, and we will do that whether you like it or not. Can I say this? GDPR does not prevent you from publishing emails, letters, minutes and agendas from any meetings. So will you now publish them all?
Cabinet Secretary.
However, if you wish to see the email from the board that I quoted from and other exchanges around that time, then I am very happy to publish those and to make those available to members.
Alison Johnson, to be followed by Sarah Boyack.
Thank you. The Cabinet Secretary doesn't agree that the relationship is dysfunctional, but it certainly appears that the relationship between NHS Lothian and the Scottish Government has been damaged. And I'd like to understand what action the Cabinet Secretary intends taking to restore the essential trust that must exist between the Health Board and ministers. And in light of Mr Houston publicly expressing such serious concerns about the relationship, will the Cabinet Secretary be meeting with Mr Houston himself or others to explore the concerns so that we can avoid any future breakdown in this really important relationship?
Cabinet Secretary.
So, Mr Houston's resignation came as a result of the appraisal that he received from the Director General of the NHS in Scotland. Standard practice. And I'm sure, like others in this chamber, I know that appraisals sometimes can be uncomfortable. And clearly, Mr Houston found that to be the case and did not accept the conclusion of that appraisal. I do not accept, on the basis of that, that the relationship between this government, the Health Directorate, myself, the DG or any of my senior officials and NHS Lothian is damaged on the basis solely of one individual's resignation and their personal decision to go to the press and make a number of accusations and assertions which I refute. Our relationship with NHS Lothian continues to be a productive, supportive and, yes, at times challenging one, and that is as it should be.
Sarah Boyack, to be followed by Alex Cole-Hamilton.
Cabinet Secretary, has the opening date of the sick kids been confirmed and agreed by NHS Lothian? I ask because we had a recent cross-party briefing from senior staff where the date was not confirmed.
Cabinet Secretary.
As I said earlier, the timeline that I set out, which was to move DCN into the new facilities in the spring this year and for the hospital to open in the autumn, remains on track. Specific dates require to be finalised as we progress that work. The ventilation, the new upgrade to ventilation and the other matters go in, and as soon as we have a specific date for both of those, I will happily return to the Chamber or advise members by email of those.
Thank you. Alex Cole-Hamilton, to be followed by Daniel Johnson.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. The cloud under which all of this sits is the reality that a hospital lies empty, costing £1.4 million a month, bereft of patients. Given that communication has been at the heart of some of the problems we've discussed today, what confidence does the Cabinet Secretary have that she is receiving now accurate communication from NHS Lothian around the hospital, that she can then impart with regularity to this Parliament?
Cabinet Secretary.
So, the climate that actually surrounds all this is not simply that we have a hospital lying empty, but that we had a hospital that was not safe. That is the fundamental point. And if I have no other job as a Cabinet Secretary, it is to protect patient safety. And that is what I did. In terms of the information, as I've said, we have Mary Morgan from the Scottish Government working with NHS Lothian. She reports to an oversight board chaired by our Chief Nursing Officer, and the information from that board is regularly communicated to me in terms of progress that is being made in order to ensure that the timeline I've outlined is met.
And Daniel Johnson.
The Cabinet Secretary did not deny threatening to dismiss Mr Houston. If so, can the Cabinet Secretary confirm what grounds she believes she had for issuing such an ultimatum?
Cabinet Secretary.
Mr Houston chose to resign. I chose not to use my ministerial powers. This all arose, as I've said already, from an appraisal, and as I said, we all accept that they can be uncomfortable, but they are an important part of how we conduct our work with our chief executives, with our chairs, and indeed we expect our chairs to do that with non-execs. Now, if Mr Houston or any other chair does not accept any accountability for the situation that NHS Lothian finds itself in at level 3 for performance and other matters, despite having significant additional resources and support put into it, at level 4 for a hospital which, on the grounds of patient safety, had to be halted in the move into it days before that was due, then Mr Houston has a different idea of the role of chair than I do, or than I acted upon when I was the chair of a national board. What I expect from our chairs is very clear. They require our support, they require our challenge, but they also require to accept their accountability for the performance of the board that they chair. That is the situation we were in. Mr Houston did not accept that. He did not accept the conclusions of his appraisal. In that situation, where someone does not accept that more work could be done, then it is very difficult for us to continue in that productive relationship. In those circumstances, Mr Houston chose to resign.
Thank you very much, and that concludes topical questions. And we'll move on in just 1 second to the next item of business. A short pause.